Well, good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. It is Tuesday, September 15th, and this is Queer News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It is time to queer up the news.
Watch as we bring you these and other stories from the LGBTQ headlines. The first LGBTQ elected official in North Dakota rips man who complained about pride flag. And Andrew Gillum, to the shock of no one, comes out as bisexual.
Speaking of bisexuals...
Were we?
I don't know. Marvel just revealed Kitty Pryde, iconic X-Men character, is bisexual, and J.K. Rowling's new book is reportedly about a man who dresses as a woman to murder women. Next, you're going to tell me the Death Eaters were Nazis.
Tomorrow night on It's Happening Out, Wednesday at 8 p.m., we are joined by famous gay Donald Trump supporter Scott Pressler. Then on Gay Town Hall, Thursday night at 8 p.m., the most diverse cast of LGBTQ community members you will find in America, anywhere, will tackle the tricky subject of Florida, 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 and who will vote for between Trump and Biden, and if the LGBTQ community has anything to say about it at all. So good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Tuesday, September 15, 2020, and it is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Well, thank you, America, for joining Queer News Tonight. We are live. This is an unedited evening news show, so anything can happen. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and these are my co-anchors tonight, Dr. Ty Hauser and David Hopkins. Let's queer up the news. Tonight we begin with queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is diverse, while the LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we bring you the bullet points of queer news for today, Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. We begin by queering up the USA. The first LGBTQ elected official in North Dakota rips man who complained about a pride flag. Watch this.
Clock is running as soon as...
I don't need 5 minutes.
Please go ahead.
So, Mr. Walker, if you're not aware, and I think a lot of people in this room are not aware and have come here just because this is a gay issue, I am proudly the first openly elected lesbian in North Dakota. So that is why I'm not paying any heed to your crap. I live in Minot. I have a taxpayer. I am a person. I get to see myself represented on that flagpole. Every single person is entitled to see themselves represented. We are your elected officials. We are your brothers. We are your sisters. This city is big enough for all of us. Me having a flag flying doesn't take away anything from your rights and freedoms. But you know what it does for me? It shows me I live in a city that appreciates and embraces me. That's what it does. I'm sorry it doesn't make you feel comfortable. But we're here, we're queer, and we're not going away.
Wow. Minot, North Dakota City Councilman Carrie Evans is the only out lesbian elected to public office in the entire state. But apparently some constituents didn't get the message, because when one resident took to the floor of the council chambers to complain about a pride flag, Evans let him have it in one of the most powerful political speeches ever recorded in the state. The city had planned to fly the flag during June, but postponed after coronavirus prevention measures forced the cancellation of Pride events nationwide. Instead, realizing that festivals simply weren't happening this year, the flag was put up earlier this month. Evans addressed the man vigorously, saying, Mr. Walker, if you're not aware, and I think a lot of people in this room are not aware and have come here just because this is a gay issue, I am proudly the first openly elected lesbian in North Dakota. So that is why I am not paying any heed to your crap. Well, I think that settles that.
And not to call out some of our fellow media on the internet, but the one article I read had this as her coming out, while her campaign specifically said she was lesbian, and she also used to work for the National LGBTQ Task Force and the HRC when she lived in Washington, D.C.
I love it when politicians put people in their place in such a clear and concise way. We need more of that. In the setup to this, if you have a chance to watch the entire video, in the setup to this, she says, no, you don't get to tell me when I can talk and when I can't. I tell you. Mm-hmm. And to me, I was just like, yes, girl.
You know, I'm not even going to add another word. Both of your points are great. And of course, she hit it out of the park. Grand slam, home run for North Dakota.
Next, continuing with politicians, we queer up the USA. Surprise, surprise, Florida's Andrew Gillum reveals he is bisexual after South Beach drugs and naked man scandal. Watch this.
The authenticity that I tried to lead with was all in question at this point, and not even in question anymore. Something else had been assumed by that. And to be very honest with you, when you didn't ask the question, you put it out there, is whether or not I identify as gay, and the answer is I don't identify as gay, but I do identify as bisexual.
Former Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum came out as bisexual Monday in an interview with broadcaster Tamron Hall. Gillum said that, quote, you put it out there whether or not I identify as gay, and the answer is I don't identify as gay, but I do identify as bisexual. It's the first time the 2018 Democratic nominee for governor in Florida has spoken publicly about his sexuality. Gillum's conversation with Hall on her new syndicated talk show marks his first sit-down interview since he was found inebriated in a Miami Beach hotel room in March with a man who had reportedly overdosed. A photo of Gillum unconscious at the scene was leaked. Gillum, who was not charged in the incident, remarked how it was him at his most vulnerable.
So I have been following this and watching people comment on it on Facebook, and it really, really irritates me that some people are taking the line and going, essentially he should be ashamed, he's a husband and a father, and bisexuality is wrong. And I'm like, girl, sit down. His wife knew, or at least she said she knew, and it's a family thing. You're allowed to be a parent and bi and married.
I'm sorry, did you say girl? Girl. You know, I'm not commenting on his statement, everything that he's been through. He's coming days, weeks, months, and years. What actually happens with Andrew Gillum? I suspect I know.
Personally, comments like that upset me because it's bi erasure. There are plenty of bisexual people. Gay people are so insecure with their sexuality these days that they can't even acknowledge bisexuality as a thing. Sexuality is not binary. Why gay people will argue against that while at the same time arguing against bisexuality existing, I have no concept of.
Interesting. Next, we'll queer up the vote 2020. Trump says, I don't think science knows about climate change. Watch this.
But I think we want to work with you to really recognize the changing climate and what it means to our forests, and actually work together with that science. That science is going to be key, because if we ignore that science and sort of put our head in the sand and think it's all about vegetation management, we're not going to succeed together protecting Californians.
Okay, it'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Well, I don't think science knows, actually. Tom?
With the smell of California wildfires in the air, President Donald Trump on Monday ignored the scientific consensus that climate change is playing a central role in historic West Coast infernos, and renewed his unfounded claim that failure to rake forest floors and clear dead timber is mostly to blame. That striking moment came on a day of dueling campaign events, with Trump and Biden dramatically contrasting their outlooks on climate change and the impact it has had on the record-setting fires ravaging the West Coast. Trump suggested that the planet is going to start to cool unexpectedly, which is also at odds with a little thing called reality.
Well, it's interesting to me that this is just another example of our COVID scenario. He learned on January 28th the danger of COVID-19 and rejected the medical recommendations, and now we're in the situation in mid-September that we are in. He has been to California before. He went in year 2 of his presidency, and he's right back again in the worst fires ever in the history of the United States, principally denying science. It makes no sense.
Well, and on top of that, if you actually did clear the timber, it would probably help. However, most of these fires are on federal lands, and Trump has cut the federal forestry budgets, so it's still on Trump's plate.
To me, Trump is the kind of guy that would say, hey, I know how we're going to cool down the climate. I'm going to air condition the world using coal power plants.
Next, we are going to Queer Up Entertainment in reporting that Marvel just revealed Kitty Pryde, the iconic X-Men character, is bisexual. In the latest issue of the Marauders comic series, issue number 13, Kitty Pryde is finally seen locking lips and sharing an intimate kiss with another woman. Kitty has been linked to many male superheroes over the years, including with Star-Lord and Spider-Man. But there have long been fan speculation that subtext in the comics were hints that she was in fact bisexual. With this, she is now confirmed to be a queer comic icon, and nerds everywhere, including David Hopkins, has rejoiced.
I always thought she was openly bi anyways. But next week, Queer Up Vote 2020. Biden is losing with Cuban American voters in Florida. Well, he's losing in Florida with Cuban American voters. Yeah, it's a live show. A trend that could tip the state to Trump. There's a new ad circulating in Florida where former Vice President Joe Biden and other Democrats were shown side by side with Latin American leaders such as former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez and former Cuban leader Fidel Castro. The ad was paid for by President Donald Trump's re-election campaign and played on Spanish language television. The ad is one of many that have dominated TV and radio in the state, and its message appears to be resonating with an influential group of Latino voters in Florida, Cuban Americans. Biden is underperforming with Cuban Americans in Miami-Dade, the largest county in the state, as well as with Latino voters across Florida, according to recent polling. The lack of support from Latino voters could cost Biden a win in Florida, which has backed the national winner in every election except for one since 1964.
Next, we'll Queer Up Entertainment. Queer Eye's Tan France wants to help you get laid with style. Queer Eye star Tan France is bringing his lessons in style, confidence, and fashion directly to you, along with his entire closet. Available now, the Fab Five's favorite fashionista can impart his wisdom through Masterclass, the streaming platform where you can learn valuable lessons from some heavyweight hitters among industry leaders including RuPaul, Martin Scorsese, and Christina Aguilera. Chapters of France's 12-part course include the rules of great style, playing with prints and textures, and how to shop. I clearly don't need any help, but David and Al, you could probably use this.
JCPenney for life.
Next, we're going to Queer Up Entertainment and reporting J.K. Rowling billboard covered up after fierce opposition and paint attacks. It lasted less than 24 hours. The billboard on Hastings Street in East Vancouver, Canada, was paid for by Rowling fans Chris Elston and Amy Hamm in support of their Harry Potter author's anti-trans views. Hay proudly shared a photo of the billboard on social media on September 12th, but it was removed just a few hours later after drawing outrage from LGBTQ allies. Within hours, a tin of blue paint was splattered over the sign, and by the end of the day, a cherry picker had arrived to cover over the entire message.
Next week, we're up the world. Uniformed Russian Cossacks are patrolling streets of Yekaterinburg during Pride. Pride Week, seeking out LGBTQ people. Groups of uniformed men have been patrolling the streets of Yekaterinburg during Earl Pride Week, a week-long festival organized by the city's LGBTQ Resource Center. Witnesses claim that the men, some of whom are dressed in protective suit and hats, were patrolling the park near the Drama Theater, near the Yeltsin Center, and along the Iset River. The timing of the patrols appears to be due to Pride Week, which is expected to gather LGBTQ people and allies from throughout the region. Organizers had planned to conduct a tour of, quote, queer places in the city earlier in the week, but later canceled the event.
Next, we'll queer up religion. Pastor threatens school with lawsuit after daughter sent home for homophobic t-shirt. Rich Penkovsky, leader of the extremist anti-LGBTQ hate group Warriors for Christ, told the Christian Post that his daughter's First Amendment rights were violated after she was told to leave Livingston Academy in Livingston, Tennessee. His daughter, Brielle, who is 15 years old, wore a t-shirt with, quote, homosexuality is a sin, written on the front, as well as 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 10, which is a biblical passage interpreted by many Christians as outlawing homosexuality. Penkovsky has a history of anti-LGBTQ statements and has publicly opposed drag queen story hours, where drag queens read books to children. Real classy guy.
Next, let's queer up entertainment. We report tonight that J.K. Rowling's new book is reportedly about a man who wears dresses to murder women. According to an early review in The Telegraph in the United Kingdom, Troubled Blood, the fifth installment of her Cormoran Strike series, written under a pseudonym, Robert Galbraith, is about a cold case from 1974 that involves, quote, a transvestite serial killer. A reviewer of the book commented that J.K. Rowling's views of how dangerous trans people are happened to be so absurd that she had to write fiction to make them come true.
Next, we queer up gay culture. Centaur Motorcycle Club cancels Mid-Atlantic Leather Weekend 2021. Centaur Motorcycle Club, the 50-year-old leather organization that hosts one of the nation's oldest, most beloved, and best attended LGBTQ leather events, Mid-Atlantic Leather Weekend, officially announced on Monday night that the 2021 event is canceled. This sees a continuation of a recent trend where established LGBTQ events are displaying no confidence that America is going to be back to normal even in the next calendar year. The sad truth is, they're probably right to be skeptical.
Tonight, let's catch up on all the news surrounding COVID-19 with our segment we call Quarantine Quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. First, we report on coronavirus case numbers. Based on standard acceptance of the LGBTQ population, the world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases now stand at 2,066,572, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 472,723. We remind you that America continues to be the ground zero of the world's pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America makes up 22.8% of all of the world's cases. Next, we report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 65,391, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at a staggering 13,945. The USA is 21.3% of all of the world's deaths.
Quarantine Quickies. Every big movie still delayed by coronavirus. Watch this.
To try and prevent the incredibly rapid spread of COVID-19, some countries are limiting travel and closing their borders. After a terrible outbreak, Italy placed limits on all travel and put its residents under a strict quarantine, essentially closing some of the world's most historically relevant major cities. And unsurprisingly, this shutdown has also affected the entertainment industry in a big way. Film festivals and premieres are getting rescheduled and canceled right and left, and between quarantine shooting locations, contaminated cast and crew members, and concerns about crowds attending new movies, a lot of projects have ground to a screeching halt in the face of COVID-19.
The coronavirus pandemic has made a mess out of everything, even your entertainment. If you're wondering when you're finally going to be able to see that big movie you've been waiting for, you're not going to like the answer. Such huge releases, including Avatar 2, The Batman, Doctor Strange, and Ghostbusters, have all been delayed at least a year due to concerns over the pandemic, not to mention the movie company's bottom line if these movies don't perform well financially. Well, I guess there's always Netflix.
We can Netflix and chill. I'm actually going to take a slightly different hit on this because I think it might be good for the movie industry. This year, they might be forced to look at those independent films that they wouldn't usually overlook for the big names at the Oscars. So it could be good.
So says the college professor. We just want our big blockbuster summer movies. And by the way, Avatar 2, I just can't wait. Absolutely can't wait.
I was more excited for Doctor Strange 2 and Ghostbusters 3. I mean, we've been waiting for Ghostbusters 3 since the 80s or like 91. I don't remember when Ghostbusters 2 was. So I guess I can wait a few more months, but yeah.
And I can't wait to find out how they bring the characters back from the Matrix. Can't wait. They're dead, by the way. They're dead. Spoiler alert, they're dead.
Well, we managed to bring you back. Quarantine quickies. CDC studies suggest restaurants are high-risk COVID-19 infection hotspots. A new study from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has found restaurant dining to be the most commonly shared activity among a number of adults with COVID-19. The CDC study suggests eating and drinking at a restaurant is an especially high-risk activity during this ongoing global pandemic. The most striking finding was those positive COVID-19 cases were twice as likely to have eaten in a restaurant compared to those in the negative control group. It's hypothesized restaurants may be intrinsically higher risk environments due to the necessity of having to take the masks off to eat. Enclosed environments with often boisterous conversations and no consistent facial covering are factors that all coalesce to make restaurants particularly challenging locations for COVID-19 safety measures.
That's an interesting story, especially for the LGBTQ community. Next, we are going to queer up our segment called Good News. After we finish our headlines, we want to report on something that makes us smile today in good news.
Queer up good news. Duranice Pace can sing some gospel and make it a little bit better. In a much-needed reprieve from the hard times lately, a woman shows us all that she was clearly put on this earth with music in her very soul. Watch this.
Warming hearts from the airport to Walmart. Even the kitchen. She's the oldest of Atlanta's acclaimed sibling gospel group, the Anointed Pace Sisters.
Through all of my sicknesses, through me losing 189 pounds, feeling bad, singing was my medicine.
Duranice now entering what she calls her fourth chapter, which includes the role of viral legendary rapper Snoop Dogg retweeting this video of Duranice greeting some of her 8 famous sisters on Thanksgiving 2 years ago.
God is anointing. He's all in her. He anointed her to sing. Everybody, you say?
Her booming voice filling up complete strangers at Old Lady Gang restaurant.
I know my 1, 2, 3. You can tell that she loved the Lord in her voice.
Not slowing down, Duranice is eager to heal people in tragedy-stricken communities, and she's finally ready for Broadway.
I want to go somewhere to let somebody know your day's gonna get better. I want to encourage somebody and tell them I'm sorry that happened to you.
Pushing through the pain and tears, she sings no matter who makes the request, and we are thankful.
I wish I had a little more time with you.
She has survived so much: sexual abuse, divorce, thyroid cancer. Duranice used to sing for military families overseas.
Well, Duranice Pace, I just want to be the first to tell you that you've made the entire LGBTQ community's day a little bit better. Well, next up, we were all once that awkward young person who struggled with their identity. And it is why We find movies that show today's youth what it means to be LGBT is so important, and more important as it ever was as they struggle to find their true self. Queer News Tonight proudly presents the top 10 gay coming-of-age movies. Watch this.
Q News presents Top 10 Coming of Age Movies. At number 10, Mysterious Skin. At number 9, blue is the warmest color. At number 8, Boys Don't Cry.
What are you seeing him?
You wouldn't even believe it. I'm gonna ask her to marry me. It is so good that.
At number 7, Pariah.
If somebody liked you, what if the person is kind of like a friend, but you know they like you more than that?
At number 6, The Danish Girl.
That means something.
You will not tell anyone about this.
Number 5, Moonlight.
You ain't it.
Remember the last time I saw you?
At number 4, My Own Private Idaho.
You men make yourselves comfortable. I'll be right back.
Number 3, Call Me By Your Name.
What things that matter?
You know what things.
Number 2, Booksmart.
Up your vagina next year. Every time I come to visit you, you're gonna be scissoring a different girl. Dude, scissoring is not a thing. Don't knock it until you've tried it. Don't knock it until you've tried it. Ow!
Finally, at number 1, Love, Simon.
Hey! I like your boots! I said I like your boots! Goodbye!
Nobody knows I'm gay.
Did we miss your favorite? Tell us in the comments below. Subscribe, like, follow, and ring the bell.
Well, that was fun to watch. Happening Out Television Network is broadcasting on our brand new set in partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Florida. We joke this is the gayest place on planet Earth, and if you could see all the men around me, you would know that that is true. Our support of their Sunday celebration is the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and it is live. We encourage you to tune in. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
Linda Pantoja. I'm 55 years old, out of Fort Lauderdale. I am Reverend Margarita Rodriguez. I'm 55 years old, out of Fort Lauderdale. Sunshine Cathedral is our queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set in this amazing queer church campus possible.
Tonight is part 27 of Q's Q&A on coronavirus and the LGBTQ community, September 15th. This special segment is designed to be unique in America to answer your questions about coronavirus for the LGBTQ community during the pandemic.
Every Tuesday, we have an American pioneer in AIDS HIV medical treatment. With us is Dr. Howard Grossman, specialist in internal medicine with an emphasis on HIV. He was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He's become nationally recognized as an educator on HIV issues and as an advocate for LGBTQ civil rights and the rights of our community.
And of course, he has become the medical expert during pandemic for Queer News Tonight. Welcome, Dr. Grossman. And before we get into viewer questions, it's been another big week, of course, for science or lack of it, and the medical community. Before we take any questions, I just want to ask, what's on your mind this week?
Well, I was very interested, Al, in the report on restaurant going. By the way, I parked my covered wagon outside. Oh. Turn on. I've turned myself on. Anyway, being a pioneer that I am, left the covered wagon. I think that the important thing about that report is that the people who in that report who ate in restaurants were twice as likely to get infected with COVID compared to, as you said, the control group. And I think we need to put it all in perspective. We've been saying for quite some time that life is not risk-free, and people do need to consider the risks. That study did not compare indoor to outdoor dining, which is a big weakness. And I think it also couldn't account for all of the risk behavior people might have had. So, we really don't know if people might have picked up infections, if people were taking more risks. People who went to restaurants may have been taking more other risks as well. So, I take it seriously, but as we've said often, we have to learn to accommodate to this virus, and that will require some risk taking over time for people who feel comfortable doing that.
Well, let's jump right into questions, and I believe we're going to begin with you, David.
Yes, this first viewer question isn't about coronavirus, but a viewer has asked, I'm on a new medication that is a stimulant that's keeping me up at night. When should I take it to sleep well?
Well, that's always a tough question. First of all, I think it's very important that you speak to your provider who wrote you the prescription and ask this question. So that would be number one. It depends on what the medication is and what other interactions there may be. It could be that it's a medication that perhaps you can take earlier in the day so that it doesn't keep you awake at night. It may be that you could do a simple herbal thing like melatonin, which often helps people sleep. Diet can be helpful with sleep. Staying away from high carbohydrate meals before bed in the evening can be helpful because that high sugar content can keep you awake. Certainly coffee and other caffeine drinks shouldn't be taken later at night. And then there's something we call sleep hygiene. So making sure that your environment is conducive to sleep. Turning off all screens for at least 30 minutes before you go to sleep, because the blue light from computers and television screens and your phone can keep you awake. Reading a book, reading a magazine before bed, listening to quiet music so that you put yourself into the right framework for sleep, making sure your room is dark enough, that the temperature is conducive to sleep, and that there's good air circulation. Those are all things that can help people sleep better. But speak to your provider.
Okay, so we'll take the next question. A viewer wrote in to ask, the White House is using deaths versus cases metric to show us that the U.S. is doing well versus the international community. Is this deceptive, and how?
Everything this White House does is deceptive, so the answer to that is yes. You're looking at cases absolute numbers versus cases per capita. So if you look at cases per capita, places like Kuwait, Qatar are higher, Chile are higher than the U.S. But these are places where most of the population lives in main population centers that got hit early by COVID. And so their numbers per capita are high. Remember that in the U.S., this virus is still spreading. It was concentrated in the Northeast and in a couple of other cities around the country. But since the Trump administration let it run wild, it's been spreading throughout the country, so that you have places now like South North Dakota that have some of the highest per capita rates. So given the size of the U.S. and how big we are, yes, our per capita rate is lower than places like Qatar and Chile. But is that who we really want to compare ourselves to? Or would we rather compare ourselves to more equal countries like France and Germany and places like that, Australia, where the per capita rates are far lower. So yes, they're manipulating this data. And when you look at the same thing, deaths per capita, we often claim that we have the best healthcare system in the world. Well, that's going to keep a lot of people from dying. Because we're better at treating than many other places. So I don't think we really want to compare ourselves to developing countries when we're looking at these numbers, but that's what the Trump administration is doing.
Dr. Grossman, I want to ask specifically, this week I've watched a lot of news in that the CDC and the FDA has become so politicized in that however they're going to report, whatever news they report, et cetera, is now directly to the White House and must be pre-approved. If that policy continues between now and the election, how should we perceive the information, statistics, and recommendations that we're getting from our major medical institutions if it is so politically heavy-handed?
Well, what's becoming politically tainted are things like the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, which is the weekly report that the CDC puts out. So you have this guy who's the head of public relations at Health and Human Services, Michael Caputo, who did a Facebook Live program this weekend where he espoused the worst conspiracy theories, basically talked about seeing shadows on his ceilings, talked about hit squads of left-wing assassins who were going to kill people if Trump was elected, all kinds of really crazy stuff. And this is the guy who's demanding that the CDC and other agencies pass everything through him. So I think there's been some resistance. Remember, there are great scientists at the CDC and the FDA who are career scientists who've been there a long time who aren't letting this stuff get politicized.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I want to make sure that you refine the observation here. Yes. If Caputo has the power to manage the information out of CDC or the FDA, what signs should we be listening to that information is corrupted? This guy is a whack job. So what do we do? What does the LGBT?
I think we need to listen to the information that's coming from places like Johns Hopkins, Kaiser Family Foundation, Yale, some of the epidemiologists.
So Yale Medical and Johns Hopkins is going to have enough information from the national involvement of evaluation of what's going on in COVID for us to follow them?
I think they have their own sources of information that aren't necessarily as dependent on the government. And also, like I said, there are still good scientists at those agencies who are still feeding out good information. You also have 50 states who are producing information. So it's very hard for Caputo to control those 50 states and the information that they are feeding to some of these university systems.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. But we have to be, you're absolutely right, we need to be vigilant. We need to be skeptical. We need to know the sources of our information. You know, if you see something posted on Facebook, check what the source is. Make sure it's a reliable source and not some bot somewhere.
All right, our next question.
Next up, a viewer asks, I'm looking for hardcore hallucinogenics. What's Caputo's drug dealer's number? No, I'm kidding. A viewer really asked, should I consider volunteering for a SARS-CoV-2 vaccine trial?
Well, anybody who volunteers for a vaccine trial is a hero to me. So, you know, I would do it if you feel that you really want to contribute in that way. Do not go into a trial because you think it's going to work, okay? The trials are being done because we don't know if these things are going to work. So if what you would be doing would be a totally altruistic act to volunteer your body to see if these things work, and that's the attitude you need to go into a trial with, because like I said, we don't know the answer until the trial's finished.
Dr. Grossman, I wanted to ask you real quickly, AstraZeneca's suspension of the phase 3 trial in the UK, and it was suspended for a number of days, and then they've restarted it. What did you make of all of that and what AstraZeneca was doing?
Well, what they did by suspending the trial, because somebody developed transverse myelitis, which is a neurologic symptom in the spine, neurologic disease, that can be very serious, is that they suspended the trial. But we don't know the details about the patient, and they haven't released any information about why they restarted it. So there are a lot of scientists who are screaming pretty loudly about the fact that all of this is being played close to the vest, and that's the same is true for multiple pharmaceutical companies that are developing vaccines. They're really being very closed-mouthed about their protocols, what they're seeing, what their criteria are for stopping and restarting, and that has a lot of people very upset.
Okay, and before we end our segment for tonight, any other kinds of things you want to bring to LGBTQ America's attention, either in health or in COVID-19?
Well, a couple of things, Al. I think we've talked the last couple of weeks about how people are realizing a few things. One, that what we've been saying all along, this is going to be a long process, probably at least 2 or 3 years. And that we need to learn to accommodate to this virus and find new ways of interacting with each other and being with each other. As I've said, I've had numbers of patients who've come to me and said, I've been sort of just getting through the last 6 or 8 months. I'm drinking too much. I haven't been going to the gym. I haven't been exercising. I haven't been, taking care of myself. I can see this is going to be going on a long time, and I'm going to get back on the stick. So that makes me think something's really changing in people's perception. And I do think it's time for people to get back to a healthier lifestyle. The other part of that is that what we're seeing, especially among gay men, is a return to hookups and a return to more casual sex. Now, people aren't necessarily doing as much as they used to. I'm not hearing about huge group sex parties and things like that, but people are definitely hooking up, and I'm seeing a large number of STDs in my practice. So I just caution people, one, to be aware of the STDs and make sure you're getting tested, and two, to think about what precautions you want to take when you are hooking up with somebody you don't know for COVID-19. How do you protect yourself and make sure that you don't get infected? These are really important issues for us to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The last moments alone justify why we continue to do this every Tuesday night. We have done this for the better part of over half a year now. And that is part 27 for Q's Q&A of coronavirus and the LGBTQ community. Every Tuesday night, we bring you viewer questions and the most important medical advice from our medical expert, Dr. Howard Grossman, from Midway Specialty Care Center right here in Wilton Manors. We continue and will continue to broaden this beyond COVID to other LGBTQ health issues as our weeks go on. Because as Dr. Grossman just told you, he and I are probably going to be working together for the next 3 years every Tuesday night. So as always, well, no, he was talking to you, David and Todd, when he was talking about the STD problem. We'll explore that next week. So as always, thank you, Dr. Grossman, for being with us.
Thank you, Al. And if I could just say very quickly, we are looking for medical assistant at Midway Specialty Care.
Yes.
So if you would like to come work with me,
Staff.
we would love you to come apply, and we're looking for somebody especially who speaks Spanish.
Do you think I would be a good healthcare worker? Is there potential for me to learn a new career?
Are you fluent in Spanish?
Right. Thank you.
English some days.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're going to end tonight's broadcast with The Big Finish. Short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Queer News tonight's The Big Finish. Lady Gaga is reportedly being eyed to play Marvel's Emma Frost.
I actually think this would be amazing. I love Emma Frost. I feel she was not done justice to in X-Men First Class, and Gaga showed us in American Horror Story that she could play that kind of aloofly vicious character so well.
I love that you referenced American Horror Story because she shone there, and girl was just born that way.
Performance in Stars Born, Emma better learn to sing a ballad, because any movie without Gaga's voice on display is a damn shame. Even a Marvel movie. The Big Finish. Donald Trump refuses to stop playing the Village People's gay anthem, Macho Man, to the confusion of LGBT people everywhere.
Confusion is correct. He's not macho. His little toad from Mario Kart penis makes it sound like he's not much of a man. Not to penis shame, I'm just listening to Stormy. And he doesn't have the fashion sense of the Village People.
I hear that when he goes to rallies, all the staff stay at the YMCA.
Oh, clever, got it. I think, yes, Donald is trying to tell us something. Let's dive into what he's trying to tell us. Likely he thinks he's manly. He thinks he's a ladies' man. He thinks he's powerful and in control of every sexual situation, and everybody wants to have sex with him, which is why using Macho Man with 5 men in drag is just so hilarious. Also, if you look really hard, he is communicating that he is totally an idiot.
Yeah, somebody tried to grab Melania by the pussy and ended up holding hands with Trump.
The Big Finish. Marvel Night. A Florida man dubbed Captain America is arrested after tearing down and stealing a gay pride flag.
He doesn't deserve that for numerous reasons, but especially because he doesn't have America's ass.
True.
He probably is against burning the flag as well, which doesn't make any sense.
I already missed yesterday when we were talking about the real Captain America's dick pic. Wait. Instead of the Florida Man version. I have anchored, this is true, Queer News Tonight now for 136 episodes. And I have said or reported, quote, Freak Show Florida 134 of those 136 times, including tonight, September 15th, 2020. The Big Finish. Chris Evans addresses the photo leak we were just talking about in the best way ever by saying, now that I have your attention, supporting voting on November 3rd.
See, I already planned on voting. His penis leak just made me want to look at his brother Scott's again.
So I loved his brother's tweet, which was, I took social media off yesterday. Anything interesting happen?
All right, now we're talking about Chris Evans' dick. This is a big finish that I can embrace. It's more like it. Follow his and his friends' advice first. We all make silly mistakes. He really did make a silly mistake and had recovery. The best way to take away the thunder of the haters out there is with humor. His Avenger friends, including the Hulk, Thor, and Iron Man, all weighed in on his dick on social media, and it was hilarious. Then Captain America puts the nail in the coffin that we reported on yesterday. But after our show last night, he came back out on social media saying, now that I have your attention. Thanks to Dr. Hauser here. I have finally seen the dick picture. I saw it last night. And Chris, you do have my attention. In laughs, and in the sexy. Thank you.
Well, any conversation about that penis is weighty conversation indeed.
The Big Finish. London's narrowest home at just 5 feet 5 inches wide goes on the market for almost $1 million. Is Harry Potter for real?
I mean, this house is perfect. It's beautiful. It's got rooftop terrace, and you can
It's the
hang a
blue one in
sling
the middle.
wall to wall without having to worry about supports.
Oh, I've seen the house and it just made me miss London.
Yeah, me too. We were talking about that. It's practically straight out of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix movie. Remember? Where a house is just between other houses but invisible to the naked eye? But for $1 million? Really? London, don't you realize that you're in Brexit, the pound has crashed, and you have a COVID-19 pandemic problem? But it is a cool story. Oh, and I have always needed a house elf, the transphobic creator. The Big Finish. It only took 2 hours for Carol Baskin to be thrown to the tigers on Dancing with the Stars.
You know, tigers just don't attack people like that. Maybe if you rub some sardine oil on their shoes while they're trying to dance.
His family put an advertisement out. Wow, powerful stuff.
Yeah, I've heard so much about the song Eye of the Tiger, but how come no one ever talks about, the other 4 letters? Get it? The letter I, the other 4 letters?
That bitch, Carol Baskin.
What do you call, I'll do another one. What do you call a female tiger? Tiger. Get it? Here's the funniest joke of them all.
Really?
How did Tiger King become so popular during this pandemic? Netflix is great on their viral marketing. Okay, I'll stop.
Thank God.
Just like Carol Baskin should have last night. In reality, Carol Baskin is a horrible person, and I hope we can just forget about her. One more, however. It only took 2 hours for the tiger to eat her on Dancing with the Stars. Stars. Yeah, right.
Al, your jokes were as bad as her paso doble. And that is today's news for the LGBTQ community
True.
on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Queer News Tonight. But you gotta help us out. Click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. And this is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the world. Who else would even try to make these kind of jokes?
And you are not alone in being upset about MAL. We are here with you, my leather brothers and sisters, and we will get through this crisis.
We're here with you, and this is Queer News Tonight.
So thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson. This is episode, I think, 137 for me. And on behalf of Dr. Ty Hauser and David Hopkins, we will see you again daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, America.
Good night.
Night.